welcome to the Liberating Effect. I'm Michelle Overstreet, and I'm joined by Rabbi Mendy Greenberg and Isaac Smoldon, and we are reviewing Chapter 9 in the Letters for Life by Levi Shmotkin.
Yes.
This has been so much fun. The conversation has been great, and the rabbi just told us a story that we wanted to ask him to share. That's a fun story about Levi Shmotkin.
That's right.
The author.
But before that, let's make sure we do the act of kindness.
And I did say that I would vouch for Michelle, who put hers in before we hit record. So
of course.
We have all done our act of kindness before starting the podcast now.
Very nice.
So I wanted to start off by saying that just a little bit ago I was speaking to Levi Shmotkin, who compiled this book together so beautifully. And he was telling me that he's going all over the world, literally, in the United States and throughout the world to speak about this book. And this book has already been translated in a few languages. And he said he was asked by someone in the crowd by a lecture if there's anything in the book, any reaction or response or conversation about the Holocaust. So he mentioned that there is a letter printed here in its entirety in the back of one of the previous chapters that we spoke about. I already forgot which one. And yeah, it's, I think, chapter 5. And he said something that he repeated over an idea that he heard from our podcast here about this letter from Isaac, which was that Isaac said that what he understood from the letter that the Rebbe was writing is that when we do not know a reason why something happens to us negatively, that's a proof it's basically God saying that you don't need to know the explanation in order to move forward in life. And sometimes we realize that there are things that happen to us that we won't know the answer, that it transcends us, beyond us, and we accept that. We can live with that, knowing that we don't know the answer, and we still move forward in our life. And he repeated that idea that he got from Isaac and from our podcast. I thought it was very cool.
Very nice.
The guy who compiled this book, who sold thousands, 20 or 30,000 copies of this book, got an idea of understanding of the Rebbe's letter from Isaac.
I've gotten so much from this book. I think what's really cool is that it allows the conversation to keep going. That's what's great about this podcast. Is I mean, Michelle right away during the book signing had already read it, and we talked about, has so many sticky notes that she put in there. And it's great to be able to give, I think, back through this medium to something that has affected all of our lives and all of our emotional wellness. So I would not deign to take any credit from that, but I'm happy to be used as an instrument when it comes to these conversations. And I've been talking the last couple of weeks about how I've felt convicted by what we've been working on because we're still in the tackling the overcoming darkness section of the book. Mm-hmm. We've talked about bad moods, and we've talked about worry, and we've talked about discontent. And now we're going to talk about one that I think I have always struggled with, which is self-criticism. But I was actually having a conversation about this with someone that is a family member, and we were here in the building, and they were working on something in their own life, and they were talking about what they were doing. They were working with someone else on some emotional wellness stuff, and talking about self-image, self-worth, and the concept of self-criticism had come up. And so I the rest of the day, any time that I was sitting there and I was like, I'm so stupid, I was like, actually, you know what? No, I'm not. That was a mistake. It does not apply any sort of quality onto me as a result of it. And we just had that little reminder, the rest of the day to each other. Anytime I said something or he said something, or we were talking about how this project went or this thing that was coming up, it was this catch. And I think what is great about this chapter is a lot of folks, I think, struggle with the concept of self-criticism, being overly negative with themselves. And it's not about, again, like with a lot of stuff, denying those feelings entirely. It's about forming that catch in your mind that, that decision, that mistake, it's one decision and one mistake. It does not mean that I am less of a person. It does not bestow on me now any sort of quality. And I think just having that catch where you can acknowledge that for yourself can become such an important tool when we're talking about self-criticism.
Right. I think one of the very amazing ideas that's brought out here is the concept that a person is not objective about themselves, just like we're not objective about close family members, right? If it's our children, our parents, whether it's for the bad or for the good, but we have a very personal connection. So too, we are our own closest relative. And just like, if someone talks about their own greatness, right, their own qualities, you might take it with a grain of salt because they're talking about themselves. Some people think it's only when it comes to speaking about your own goodness and greatness, but not about so to speak, our negative traits. But what the Rebbe brings out is just like we don't trust someone when they talk about we don't fully trust someone and take them on their word when they talk about how good they are, how amazing they are. We also don't take their word on how negative they are because we don't see ourselves in an objective light. And therefore, it's very easy for ourselves to paint ourselves in a very broad brush and a very negative brush when really the case is not necessarily is so. So very often we criticize ourselves very strongly, a lot harsher than we really deserve. And the bigger problem is that sometimes we think that's virtuous. We think we're being, honest with ourselves and being real with ourselves and hard on ourselves. But that's a lot of times it's a big mistake. And that's actually the beginning of going down a very, very bad place, which doesn't let us grow, doesn't let us be positive, doesn't let us be happy and joyful and loving and caring because we see ourselves in such a negative light, which very often that whole thing could be not true in the first place.
Right. There's so much in this chapter that I love, and I think we see with the clients that we work with here exactly what you just described, that it's so easy. There's a movie line that says the bad stuff is always easier to believe, that's from Pretty Woman, which love it or not. But sometimes that's the truth. And you can get so anchored in that sense that that I'm somehow, the ability to criticize myself to a point where I feel bad about myself is somehow virtuous, that martyrdom is somehow virtuous. And I think I won't bash any other religions right now, but even though I kind of want to, but I think that the way that I grew up, it was, you confess your sins to someone else, and there was a sense of virtue around not being proud of yourself when you do have an accomplishment, that, always looking at what you didn't get done instead of what you did get done. Right. And I think there's tremendous value in what is being taught here, and focusing on one, recognizing that self-critical thinking and being able to back away from it is not to trust your own evaluation, right? That's what you're saying, is that we're our own family, we're also our own worst enemy,
right? And
so don't trust your own evaluation, and step away from that. I think there's tremendous power in that, in terms of this time of year, the darkness, the cold. Some people get isolated. They can't go out when today it's very slick out.
Yes.
My elderly parents, I don't want them to go out walking around where they could fall. And that creates isolation. And so, being able to have less self-criticism and more joy is a tremendous blessing this time of year.
That's right.
Yeah, and this idea, because I was not exposed to this idea of, just like we take someone with a grain of salt when they are boasting about their accomplishments, we also need to take people's lamenting on their failures with a grain of salt. But it's an ancient, this idea dates back in Jewish law to the 2nd century BC, right? So it's not a new concept, but it is one that I had the pleasure of unearthing in this chapter and being exposed to for the first time, which is another reason why I have enjoyed going through this book so much.
In Jewish law, a person can never incriminate themselves. It's impossible. We don't trust. You could say you did the worst thing in the world because it's from you. We don't trust it. Like in law, the judges will not accept your own decree. What you said you did. If it's there's a line that says a person cannot make themselves wicked. So the only way we can know that you're wicked is if we have evidence outside of you that you did something wrong. But you yourself we don't trust you.
Oh my
You're not trustworthy in incriminating yourself. So yeah, and it starts off in the beginning of the book how today meant it used to be in many other cultures and religions and countries that actually was the greatest evidence when someone gave said what they did, and today you also need other evidence, but till today what someone says, which is why we tell people you don't have to say what you could plead the fifth and not say what you don't want to say. But that's a very powerful idea that to realize that when we judge ourselves, we should take it with a grain of salt, and therefore we should go to someone that we trust and someone that we respect. And actually, the Rebbe one time made a big campaign that every person should have their own mentor. And he said, sometimes someone says, I can't find anyone greater than me. I can't find anyone that I could trust. And the idea was that because a person is close to themselves, a relative of themselves, they need someone else that's objective to see everything from an objective place and tell you where you might be going wrong and where to keep you on the right path.
And allow me to correct myself. 2nd century CE. But just because I made that mistake doesn't mean that and there's any negative implication that has been put on me.
Good job, Isaac. Good job.
Can you, Rabbi, can you say the Yiddish for smart aleck?
I knew you were going to ask that.
I'm just trying to give my mother more information for other things that she can call me when I'm acting up.
Klugenker.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Mom, there you go. Klugenker. Next time we're playing Pinochle and you don't like something I've said, you can use that one.
I love that is part of this chapter.
Yeah.
Truly. Because it really makes a point, the angel on one shoulder, devil on the other.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
It really amplifies that the Jewish faith actually has terms for that, and an awareness that is, part of why you need outside input for determining how much of a smart aleck you are. No, the smart aleck is in reference to the moralistic negative self-talk.
Right.
In the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's something that is important to remember that, we think of, so devil on one shoulder, angel on the other. The movie I always think of is Emperor's New Groove, because Kronk is there and he's like, oh, should I throw the llama off it's a whole thing. I don't need to go into context about how the man turned into a llama. But in that movie, the devil's just like, yes, you should throw him off the cliff. Very obviously the evil thing to do. But, in reality, in non-cartoons, it's not so much. I think actually the term that he uses in the book is, hey, you should go rob that bank. It's more about, you're a hypocrite. You are, you're not good enough. You're a failure. And it's almost more dangerous in a way because it is not so overtly evil. Right. I think that oftentimes, true evil that we see in some of the most nefarious forms of evil is the slow creeping vine that, kind of slow wraps around you until it's engulfed you and you're unable to break free. And are there, destructive sudden acts of terror and evil, no question. But the evil that sounds right, that is where there can be true harm, and I think that it's important to again have that catch, forming that catch to where you can go, well, that sounds right, but let's analyze it for a second. Is what I'm telling myself accurate, or is this my negative? Can you say it again for me?
Klugenker.
Thank you. Is it that is it that side of my inclination that is telling me this?
Right.
And getting the outside perspective, right?
Right. And actually, that one of the things that about the Klugenker and about the evil inclination is that sometimes actually, so someone could say, okay, I understand. I could maybe I can't be trusted, and I'm not objective to know my own faults, and I should be getting an outside opinion. But I mean, at the end of the day, we all have some faults, right? We do have things we have to improve. If someone's going to come with that approach that I'm always good and there's nothing to improve, that's not a good thing either. We do have to refine ourselves and make ourselves better. So where do we draw the line, right? So is someone going to say, I'll just never look at anything anyone suggests, or if I come up with myself and I think I have a negative trait, I have a negative habit, am I not going to deal with it? Obviously, that's not how we deal with it. So what is the way? How do we know, or where do we draw the line? And the answer is, if these thoughts are going to help us be more proactive, are these, in other words, if we see a certain problem with ourselves, we see a certain problem with our behavior, with our character, with our habits, and all of a sudden we start thinking about it. We're in the middle of work, we're in the middle of being with the family, we're in the middle of this, middle of that, and all of a sudden have all these negative thoughts against myself, incriminating thoughts about myself. Where is this leading me to? Is this leading me to be upset about myself, depressed with myself, frustrated with myself, and then not being active, not being helpful, not being happy and joyful, and being a contributing member of society? Then it's coming from the evil inclination. It's the perfect way how the evil inclination wants to catch us and grab us and have us sink. However, if those ideas are actually going to inspire us to actually really get things done and to actually really make ourselves better and to actually own up to our shortcomings and to actually refine ourselves, make ourselves better in a happy way, in an uplifting way, then that's a sign that it's coming from the positive place, and it's coming from the good inclination. It's coming from a holy place and a good place of refining ourselves.
It's almost the very narrow line between self-criticism and self-reflection.
Exactly.
Because owning up to your failures and taking accountability is a good thing, and should motivate you to want to do better. I'm very motivated by the not fear of failure, but by the idea that I can do better, we can do better. But I think it's a very slight difference that makes all the difference in the world there, between when failure happens, and failure will always happen. I've failed. I can do better, versus I failed and I can't do better.
Right.
I am incapable of doing better. I shouldn't even try to do better because this failure is what I am, instead of this temporary state of being that provides you that opportunity to be uplifted.
Yep. Beautiful. Mm-hmm.
I also really love the note that energy and activity can come only from a state of vitality, which is the opposite of frustration. So using that feedback about where your shortcomings might be to move forward and infuse energy and activity, let that motivate you into a state of vitality instead of being frustrated. I think if we get stuck in that frustration loop, that's where a lot of people get, then it starts to affect their joy and their daily activity, right?
Yes.
It's just so important, again, this time of year, to kind of keep looking for ways to bring joy in. I tend to be motivated a lot of times by frustration. When I get frustrated, We just recently had a situation where, as a leader, I could not overcome for years a situation where I just started speaking. Like, we're right on the edge of overcoming this. We're just days away from this solution appearing, and it did. And I had to put in the work and make some, connections and reach out and do some activity around that. But the truth is that the frustration created the desire for the energy for me. It took a long time for me to figure out what the solution should be and how to go down that path, how to navigate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I really love the idea that recognizing the shortcomings can lead to joy.
Right.
There's a path there.
That's right. There's a famous Hasidic saying that the greatest sin is depression. Even though it doesn't say in the Torah anywhere, that it doesn't say anywhere in the Bible. But the reason is because that is the root. That's once you're depressed, once you're lost, like that's the best place where the negative forces want you to be.
Right.
If you're depressed, then that's it. So there's no purpose of doing anything.
Yeah.
Because it's all messed up anyway. Because as you said, I'm totally messed up. I'm a failure. I am worthless. So if you're worthless, why do anything good? If you're worthless, why stop yourself from doing anything bad? If you're worthless, why try to make good for anyone else? So that state of being, that place of that place is the worst, is the source of all evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that frustration can motivate you toward
However, exactly.
the joy, that's really the ideal.
Right. So when that frustration, as you were saying, when that frustration is able to be a springboard to get you to be motivated and to get you to perfect, refine and perfect and become better, then it's a very positive thing.
Yeah. Again, I think this is another example of the rabbi not saying what the solution is,
right,
but saying, here's the path.
That's right.
Find the solution.
Well, and two, that the solution is more about, I don't want to sound like, a bed and breakfast sign, but it's about the journey, not the destination.
Right.
If you put in effort, in the section you were just talking about, Rabbi, he's talking about the man from Argentina. He goes to visit the Rebbe, and he says, if you put in effort, you will succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Since you have put in the effort, you have had success.
Right.
And try again. I don't want to sound like a motivational poster, but if you try your best and fail, fail in quotes, what if you truly gave your best effort, what do you have to be upset about? You could be disappointed. You wanted it to go better. You thought that you could do better, but if you've tried your best, was there anything else you can do? Well, by definition, no, there was not.
Right.
So if that's the case, then why are you dwelling on it? In the next couple of paragraphs, as he's wrapping up that story, he talks about another thing that I think, Michelle, you had just said, where you're having these thoughts. Are they virtuous, or are they just detracting from your time and energy? What's the point about, and we're kind of going back into previous chapters because everything builds off of each other, but discontent, worry, bad moods, does it make you feel good? Are you feeling better because of those things by worrying about this, being, upset or envious or being in a bad mood? No. Oh, well, then is it productive and helping you move on to the next thing and get this done? Oh, it's not doing that either? then why? Then there's no reason to. And it sounds silly because we're not talking about, a step-by-step process. We're talking about the wide depths and breadth of human emotion. But for me, as someone who's more of a linear thinker, that has really helped me the last couple of months. And like, oh, well, does this make me feel better? No. Oh, well, is it helping anything? No. Oh, well, what steps could I actually take to resolve this? Oh, I'll go do that. And if there's no step, if the answer is, well, you just have to wait and be patient, then I might not like that answer, but it doesn't mean that that's not the right answer. It really transformed the way I think about a lot of the, our tasks here, our struggles here, just in personal life too, because it it almost makes it into that flow chart of, oh, if no, well then just do this, and if no to there, then here you are. And regardless of whether that's where you want to be or not, it doesn't change the fact that that's where you are.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's a constant encouragement to focus on solutions, and one thing that I really enjoyed, I had at least 2 sticky notes about this part of this chapter, and maybe I'm more sensitive to this, but I really try hard not to speak negatively or speak ill of someone, and I don't know that it ever occurred to me that should be also applied to talking bad about oneself.
Right.
And the Rebbe even extends that philosophy. The prohibition against talking badly about someone applies to talking badly about yourself.
Right.
And it doesn't apply only in cases of exaggeration. It's prohibited even if it is entirely true. So even if you have something true about someone that is negative, you're encouraged to not speak that or put that into words. And I think there's so much power in that nothing really good comes out of speaking negatively. Sometimes it makes me feel better. I'm like venting, right? But it is not productive. There's no solution in that.
Sounds like you're saying if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Yeah, and including about yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
I would say one caveat is that if you're saying it for a purpose of trying to make something better. In other words, if you need to tell a client or whatever, there's something that's going on and you're only saying it in order to improve the situation, then, or to keep people safe, obviously then we have to sometimes say the negative truth. But as just to say negative things about other people, even if they're true, if it's not with the intention to make things better for anyone, then then we're not allowed to say it, including ourselves as well. If we're saying, oh, I have this bad characteristic, I have this bad thing, and it's like, well, why are you saying that about yourself? Are you saying it in order to improve yourself, or you're just saying it because you want to speak ill about yourself? Well, if it's about speaking ill about yourself, you shouldn't say it.
Yeah.
Because this actually goes back to the idea that some of us think we can't touch and hurt anyone else, but myself, I can do whatever I want with myself. I'm in charge of myself. And a place of faith, that's not true. God made you. God put you here in this world. You're not the ultimate autonomous owner of yourself, but you belong to God, and you're God's creation. So you cannot speak ill about yourself, just like you can't speak ill about others.
I love that so much. I think if I'm gonna, if I had a nickel for every time in my 35 years of working with people who self-destruct addicts, that they say, why do you feel so powerfully that I need to quit doing what I'm doing? I'm only hurting myself. That's very common in the addiction world, and everything that we're talking about right now just flies in the face of that.
The Rebbe, I saw a talk. The Rebbe was speaking about a certain issue that people do. I'm not going to get into that issue right now. And it was something that was contrary to the Torah and to Bible's belief of what a person should be doing. And the Rebbe reacted to the what people say. It's myself. Mix out of my business. I do what I want. You do what you want. As long as I'm not harming anyone else. The Rebbe said, well, look what happens here in America. If, God forbid, someone wants to jump off the bridge, right? All of a sudden the police come and everyone comes to try to stop him. Why? It's his life. Let him do whatever he wants.
Right.
Why all of a sudden there do we say, no, we want to stop someone from killing themselves? Because it comes to a certain point that we all understand that we're going to do whatever we could to stop this person from harming themselves in such a way. So when you come with that attitude, anything that God says that we should be doing is the ultimate best for us. And we should do whatever we could to prevent someone from harming themselves.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to sometimes the callousness that people may have when you're talking about folks that are living in addiction, that are looking for treatment or are at net negative on society, right? And sometimes people's easiest solution is well, just throw them all in jail or just dump them all, just remove them out of our way. When really just like in your example, we should not be okay with that. We should not, just like we should value, ourselves as something that's made for a purpose. We need to extend that to the others around us. And, this dovetails because we're working on, I think we've talked about it before. We're working on a book. It's a recovery children's book. The message in that book, just like with so many other recovery stories, is about someone that's dealing with an inner darkness. It's having these exterior symptoms. But the common denominator, I think, among every person I've talked to that's in recovery, whether it's someone working here as a peer or someone else in the community, is that, those internal feelings were the cause for that behavior, that exterior behavior, that addiction, that, criminality. And the thing that transformed them wasn't dealing with the symptoms of that behavior. It was dealing with the cause of that behavior. It was the connections that they made, the people that they talked to out in the community, the friendships that they formed. And that created that transformation that then led to all these negative symptoms being addressed. And I think it's something that is very easy to forget when you look at someone on the street that you're passing by and want to turn away from them or say, well, that could never be me, or whatever it may be. That connection and that feeling of self-worth at the core of that person is really what we need to address as, in our case, a treatment provider, but really just as a society and nation as well.
Human to human.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story, actually. It's connected with this box. I have a first cousin. He's a rabbi in El Paso, Texas. And he introduced this box to the public schools in El Paso, and he got, I don't remember if one school or two schools, they gave them out to every single child in the school.
Wow.
And the school did a contest, actually. They had all the kids take them home, and a month later they all came back and they voted on a charity, either one or two charities out of a bunch of charities they gave the kids to choose from, and they all chose on a certain charity, and they all came and they emptied out their boxes and gathered up, and they were actually shocked to find out it was, I don't remember the number, but it was in the thousands. And they were shocked, a bunch of little kids with little boxes, and they put together a nice, beautiful sum of money. And they wrote a check and they gave it to an organization. So the kids were very excited about it. Kids were very excited. But what happened was beautiful after. There was a 12-year-old child or 13-year-old child who actually lived in Mexico. And every day he would cross the border from Mexico to El Paso, Texas, to study, to get better education in America, in the U.S. And when the kid said that every day he passes the border, and, unfortunately the situation there on the border with all the people trying to get in, children, whatever, we won't get into the whole story. He said he would just drive in, drive out, and he never paid attention to anything. Like, it made as if he just was doing his thing. He said once he had this box in his room, and he started giving every single day a penny or a nickel, a dime to charity. It was the first time ever in his life, he's 12 or 13 years old, that he started looking at those kids and he started feeling like, what's their life like?
Wow.
What's going on with them? All of a sudden they became human to him.
Yeah.
No one gave him any lectures. No one gave him any explanations. No one told him. So like what Isaac is saying about how we see people on the streets, right? And we see people are homeless and we could just write them off. Or as some people want, just put them all in prison. How do we change that? How do we see them as a human being that could really be living a normal life and a productive life? This a spark of God that's in a body and has to be healed and helped. So, we could talk about it and give lectures about it, which we should. But another way of doing it is by doing an act of selflessness and kindness every single day, when we don't realize how the impact of a little action. We think, what's an action, right? But every single day, just like 5 minutes of exercise, if someone spends not even 2 minutes, if someone exercising for 2 minutes a day. What's 2 minutes? They're not going to the gym. They're not using any fancy stuff. But every single day you do 2 minutes, you move your body around, especially for a guy like me that sits a whole day on the same spot usually, unless I'm going somewhere. That's a lot. And the same thing, a coin in the charity box, we don't realize how much that affects our own, forget about children, ourselves. If we did something selfless, we took this coin that could have been mine, I could have used it for myself, and I gave it away for another cause, for a greater cause, for somebody, for an organization, whatever it is, I just exercise my kindness muscles. When I'm going to see someone in the street, I'm going to think twice about it. I'm going to think differently about that person. And hopefully, if everyone does this together, it'll really make a big transformation.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
There's a piece of this that I thought about that goes kind of again reflects back to the recovery from addiction. I was doing a talk one time about it was in the early days of Narcan, where we could bring somebody back from an overdose and help them survive that. And there was a man in the group who raised his hand and he said, "How many times would you do that? Like, how many times would you use that on a person?" And I said, "Do you know the same person? Would you just keep reviving them?" And I said, "Well, as many as it takes." That was my answer.
Right.
And he said, "Well, shouldn't there be a limit?" And I said, "Well, what if it was your child? Would you want there to be a limit if it was your child?"
That's right.
And he didn't have a response for that. But that sparked so many conversations about the value of a life.
Wow.
And my answer never changed. It's however many it takes. We have people that work for us now that were coming and going from this organization for 8, 9, 10 years before they got sober. They were hardcore heroin addicts, and they just had to find that spark. Just one day, they didn't want to do that anymore.
Wow.
And I believe that's God, that we have to keep putting our foot in the door for death and keeping that door open, because eventually they're going to let God in. They're going to let him in. They're going to let themselves engage in a relationship with a higher power that will save their life.
And you know what I think what you're saying, only someone that believes that they have that person has something higher is able to really believe that. Like,
right.
You can't, if you don't believe that everyone at their core has a spark of God in them, you know, there comes a point that you'll say, well, you know, you try too many times, right? There's a limit.
Yes.
But when it's your child, and when God looks at each one of us as his child.
Right.
So just like we don't give up on our children, God doesn't give up on anybody.
Yeah.
And you only when you have faith, real faith, could you really see it, every single person, as that infinite possibility, and do whatever you could to save that person till the end.
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't work the first 50, 60, 70 times, but you know what? When it does, those people are the most passionate advocates for recovery that you could ever have. You know, like the person who's the reformed smoker, they're always the most radical, like don't smoke people. But I really believe that God always has a plan, and the plan is not to die of addiction. The plan is not to get depressed. The plan is not to fade away. It's for good for them. We have a lot of people that do good in this world that have recovered just under the circumstances, and they would not hesitate to put a coin in that box of gratitude, because they feel it. They feel it. I feel it for them and with them. I have one in particular that every single time I see him, I say, "I'm so proud of you, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad that you're in recovery and that you overcame all of it." I don't always have to articulate all that. I always just say, "I'm so proud of you, and I see you. I see what you've done." And I just want to encourage everyone who's listening to always see that. The person who's sitting on the corner with a cardboard sign, it could be just moments away from doing something to completely turn their life around. And we can be part of that.
That's right.
Works. Any final thoughts or comments?
We've only got 3 chapters left.
Oh,
It's I know.
Oh,
It's very sad.
I don't want it to be over.
Well-
Rabbi, do you have another book for us?
We have plenty of books. Maybe
I'm
we'll
sure
do another
we'll-
book signing.
I'm sure we'll find one after this. But we kind of got lost for a second because I don't know if any of us have a good segue for how we can set up our next chapter.
Well, I did love the last story in this chapter
Mhm.
is about a young man who talks about his friend that he's supposed to be studying with, but he ends up arguing with the guy all the time. That any topic that gets introduced, they are on opposite sides and they argue about it. And I love what the rabbi said. I told the rabbi that I thought there was something wrong with me, that I was arguing with this guy all the time. But the rabbi said to me, it would appear that you have a gift for pilpul.
Mm-hmm.
And by pilpul, he meant the ability to reach the core of a given idea through intense dialogue and debate.
Right.
And I really love that. I think the next chapter is on don't battle, pivot. And I think that's a great example of pivoting. It feels like they were in a battle, and he was uncomfortable with the fact that he was constantly in conflict with this person that he was supposed to be studying with. But the truth is that they wanted to find deeper meaning.
Right.
They wanted to that was a virtue. They wanted to go deeper and really understand what the core of the issue was, which kind of goes back to the recovery conversation, that when you figure out what the core is of why you're self-destructing, then you overcome that, right? So next chapter, don't battle, pivot.
That's right.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you so
both.
much.
I enjoy this so much. The Liberating Effect is recorded at the My House Studios. It's edited by Ozzie Keener. I'm Michelle Overstreet, Rabbi Mendy Greenberg, and Isaac Smoldon. Until next time.